The Work of Strangers in China by Madison, Kyle, Asher, Kenzie, and Cheyenne.
There is currently a shortage of well-trained nurses in China. According to Dilemmas for Nurses in China by Yang and Hao, in 2018, the ratio for nurses to patients was around 2 nurses per 54 patients. This is below the international average, and the number of nurses is even lower for nurses in smaller cities. The reason for the nursing shortage, according to Yang and Hao, is due to the heavy workload, low wages, and poor working conditions, causing students to choose a different career path, thus leading to heavier nursing shortages. Yang and Hao shared that 40 nurses from the second affiliated hospital of Suzhou University announced their departures in response to their low monthly income, only 2,000 yen, which is equivalent to $315 per month. The Chinese culture overall values medical treatment over valuable nursing care, which lowers the social status of nurses. Nurses' roles in direct care nursing delivery are inadequate in China. According to Nurses' Roles in Direct Nursing Care Delivery in China by Applied Nursing Research, 25.6% of total patient care workload was conducted by registered nurses. The rest of the care was provided by nursing students at 10.5%, healthcare assistants 21%, and a substantial portion by patients' relatives, 43.7%. This has led to deteriorating relationships between medical providers and patients, and has even led to an outbreak of violence against doctors from patients. Some of the violence is even inflicted upon nurses. Lastly, the gender stereotype nurses have has also led to a decrease in male nurses in China. In 2016, only 2.1% of nurses in China identify as male. Male nurses are known to excel in emergency room nursing as well as psychiatric nursing.
Before we dive in, I think it is important to note that China is a very collectivistic culture, unlike America, who is an individualistic culture. These differences will greatly affect how jobs look like in China compared to the USA. In a collectivistic culture like China, they put the we before the me. This means that oftentimes Chinese people will feel that their personal issues and needs come last and that others come first. Due to this collectivistic culture, Chinese people may find it shameful to reach out for help. They want to avoid embarrassment at all costs. They are very concerned with face and want to be seen as good by society, so asking for help makes them seem less than or not as good enough. It is estimated that over 170 million people have a mental disorder in China. However, 90% of these cases are untreated. This is most likely due to the shamefulness that is brought upon going to therapy. Chinese people believe that mental health issues hinder success. So, when going to therapy, they look for direct ways to solve issues to their mental health. Unlike Americans who will go over time, Chinese people choose to have the problem solved right away. This may be another reason as to why Chinese people choose to not go to therapy. It seems to be too much of a hassle more than helpful. Requirements for becoming a therapist in China differ greatly from that in America. Instead of having to get a master's or PhD and clinical experience, those in China can become a therapist through a few months of training and passing a certification exam. However, in 2013, the mental health law went in effect. This protected the public from unqualified practitioners. The downfall with the mental health law is that it restricts psychotherapy to medical institutions. This makes it difficult to address China's psychological needs. University-trained psychologists have had to change their name from psychotherapy to counseling due to this. Therapists in China make $46,000 a month, which equals out to over $6,000 in US dollars. The pay of a therapist in the USA is similar to that in China. The cost to going to therapy in both China and the USA are also similar, as it tends to be $100 or more.
In today's Chinese culture, business is becoming more and more important. The past cultural narrative for China's environment was low-paid, high-labor jobs, which is now starting to turn. Business is becoming a more important economic and social environment for the entire country, with more people starting their own jobs and becoming more involved in the business world. The Chinese economy has grown nearly 1,200% in the last 20 years, according to the United States government websites. The main reason for this is because the Chinese labor force has transformed from mostly automobile industries to technology industries. New businesses have developed over the last 20 years to increase the economy based on creating new technology and expanding their business trade. The new and growing business culture in the Chinese lifestyle has allowed for the GDP to average a 9% growth a year since 1978, according to World Bank. Due to the business increase in the Chinese economy, the salaries distribution in China has evened out over the last few years, thanks to the graphic shown here from SalaryExplorer.com.
To become a doctor in China, a student must pass the standardized exams in high school, complete 7 years or 8 years for 2 medical schools of medical studies, and undergo an internship. The students will take basic science, liberal arts, and clinical science courses in the programs. Most universities in China offer their medical degrees as a Bachelor of Medicine or a Bachelor of Surgery. Broken down, the current transfer pathways for current physicians in China requires 1 to 2 years of training, and the 5+3 pathway compromises 5 years of Bachelor of Science degree training in clinical medicine and 3 years of standardized residency training. So the pay to work in the medical field in China is based on the years of experience that you've held. 1 to 4 years, the average is $75,000 a year. 5 to 9 years of experience, the average pay is $78,000 a year. It also depends on if you're a man or a woman. Women in China are more underpaid than the men are, which is similar to the United States. There are 3 main philosophies for traditional Chinese medicine. The first is essential qi, which was not originally a philosophical concept. It meant air and is most commonly used in the everyday Chinese language. Later, its meaning was extended to the philosophical field, serving as a symbol for the primordial substance that was thought to constitute the universe. It was believed to be invisible and taking the form of particles, constantly moving and changing and giving rise to energy and activities. The medical classic of the Yellow Emperor states, human life originates in the Kai from heaven and earth and develops according to the normal order of the 4 seasons. So Chinese medicine, all life activities, including mental activities such as thought, will, and emotions, are based on the actions and changes of Kai. Chi is a material which explains mental activities in terms of objective matter. Yin and Yang is viewed as a dialectical way of thinking which can be applied to any field of medicine. There's no conflict between Chi and Yin and Yang. The fact Chi is the basic element that constitutes the world and can also be divided into two, Yin Qi and Yang. The theory is the law of unity and opposites, which means keeping a dynamic balance. The yin and yang theory focuses on how everything in the world has two opposite aspects. Yin and yang oppose each other, but they are mutually independent at the same time. An example of this would be the catabolism and anabolism, which are the two aspects of metabolism. Without one, there would be no other, and vice versa. So the use of yin and yang in medicine includes being applied to explain the organic structures of the human body, normal life activities being based on the dynamic balance of yin and yang, which opposes one another whilst also maintaining coordination. And it also guarantees health and is used in most treatments and diagnosis, maintaining coordination. And lastly, the 5 elements explain correlation between the various parts of the human body, as well as the correlation between human body and the natural environment. The 5 elements are applied to medicine by the interrelationships with the correlation between the various parts of the human body and the natural environment. I also found that traditional Chinese practitioners use various psychological and or physical approaches like acupuncture and Tai Chi, as well as herbal products to address health problems.
Like Cheyenne previously mentioned, China is considered to be a collectivist culture that is seen in their law enforcement structure as well. They focus on what is best for the country, not the people. China is also considered a homogeneous culture, with much of its population being Han and only 7% being a minority. In China, hierarchy plays a large role in the workplace. Bosses or supervisors are often the decision makers and take little into consideration what lower-level employees think. Lower-level employees often do not question guidelines or instructions given by the boss or supervisor. In the United States, there is less emphasis on the importance of titles, and there is a tendency to put team members on the same level, while in China there is more of a sense of respect for job titles. During meetings, employees tend to respect the manager's vision and ideas, and they respect the job title the person holds. While the average monthly income in China is over 31,000 yen, law enforcement officers make only 23,000 yen on average. However, law enforcement officers in China also receive additional benefits such as housing and transportation. Police have traditionally been more involved in maintaining government control than solving crimes. During my research, I found that China's crime rates are among the lowest in the world. While this could be in part due to strict regulations placed on its citizens, there is also speculation that it is not uncommon for crimes in China to be underreported or measures to be taken so that, for propaganda purposes, crime appears to be less common.